Hi, Filter here. Filter 021 to be precise. Well, it's come to our attention that one Heather Antos is leaving Marvel. Sorry about the lighting. Um, a lot of people are jumping for joy on this one, but I always take some trepidation with stuff like this. I really do. Yeah, she's leaving the whole thing. She's going about her merry way to do whatever, to do sports, or rather sports gambling site, which kind of tells me that her heart was never in the comics in the first place. This is somebody who, from everything I've gathered, this is a person that still needs to find her niche in life. She wanted to be an actress, couldn't do it. She wanted to do this, and she's just been trying all these different things, and I think finally now she's moving on to this thing. But the damage is already done, and that's a shame. The damage has already been done. Also leaving is the writer for She-Hulk. I believe Yellow Flash, pretty much, if you check out his channel, he does a very good review of that issue. But I gotta say one thing: the way these, and I'm gonna say it, these kids, they're the writer for She-Hulk is a young adult writer. She's not writing for any. She's writing to the same audience that she was writing before. It would be the equivalent of asking, let's say, if he was still, is he still alive? No, I think he passed away. Robert Ludlum to write a children's book, but he puts all the themes in his other books right in there. Or John Grisham. Hey, John Grisham, could you write a children's book? And he still puts all the stuff that he did, like for The Firm. It's just it just doesn't work. You got to know your audience. You have to know that your audience isn't going to be a bunch of young adults. It's going to be guys actually my age. Now, also, what I want to talk about, and this is very, very interesting and a tad bit bizarre, and it's this whole notion that suddenly everybody is some right wing Nazi collaborator Trump voter. Now, keep in mind, there are people who did vote for Trump. I, for one, I actually voted for Trump. I figured, what the hell? It ain't going to kill me. And it hasn't. So don't give me this stuff that, yeah, wait till he does this stuff, he puts you in a camp. F you, okay? F you. What I'm talking about is the fact that the majority of people in comics that I have met are either on the left or center left. They're not right wing. They're not terribly right wing. They're just not. The majority of comics fans are not these diehard conservatives that everybody's complaining about. That these people are complaining about. Not everybody, but these people are complaining about. They're not. They just are not. We've got let's see. We've got a lot of people who are just upset about the way they take a character. You don't take a character and just twist that character into something unrecognizable. Riri Williams, for all intents and purposes, shouldn't even exist in her current form. Really, she shouldn't be. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. Again, the whole idea also is by making every teenage girl a genius is also kind of annoying. Unstoppable Wasp, same thing. You don't just have an ordinary person gain powers. When you honestly think about it, Captain America was an ordinary guy gained powers. Peter Parker was an above average student, granted. He gained powers. The Hulk is a scientist, gained powers, but the whole scientist tampering with nature thing that's been done in movies and books for years doesn't necessarily mean they're a genius, just means that they're adept at something really, really great. The X-Men, not all of them are geniuses. The only one who is basically a genius that I could think of was Kitty Pryde. She was just really, really good at computers. And that's really much it. Uh, Hank McCoy, I guess is another one. Would you call him a genius? No, he's just a guy who is interested in biochemistry, and that was it. Let's see who else. I mean, we got a plethora of heroes out there. Um, Ben Grimm, Johnny Storm, even Sue Storm. Outside of Mr. Fantastic, who was basically a genius, but then again, the rest of the crew, they weren't geniuses. The Avengers. Granted, Tony Stark was just good at building crap. He's an engineer, and he built a lot of interesting stuff. Yeah. Um, we've had some people who are, but the teenage genius thing, that's been played to death, and it's old. If you want to have heroes, like I suggested for my Miss America character, if Marvel would ever see this video, is to have an ordinary girl bestowed with power. Actually, New Warriors. Thanks for reminding me. New Warriors, they were some kids who had powers who were able to do stuff, or who had that drive to go out there and be the heroes. Where I'm going with this is simple. It's, like I said, with people like Heather Antos leaving and the writer for She Hulk leaving, we we cannot just rest on our laurels because some of these people are moving to DC. Brian Michael Bendis is moving to DC, and he wants to do a deconstruction of Superman. This is going to be a bad idea unless the people at DC basically say, no, this is not what we wanted. We wanted you to write a story. We didn't want you to deconstruct the story. One of the things about comics is it's in the escape. It's an escape for everybody. We'd like to forget that the real world is a pretty crappy place. We like to escape. We don't want to be reminded that there are certain things that happen in this world, and we don't want to have our intelligence insulted. Case in point, I think Razorfist brought this up. He talked about the concerns of average people about immigration. Those words were thrown into the mouth of the Red Skull. Okay, your concern about immigration is going to be reflected by a Nazi. That doesn't help. There are people who have legitimate, honest concerns, and it should be approached in that fashion. Somebody who's concerned about something like immigration, employment, and the like, yes, you should have both sides of it. We, the reader, must decide. There's a great line by Vince Mangoy. Oh, gosh, I'm butchering names. Anyways, he's the producer, and he's the actor in Star Trek Continues. If you haven't seen Star Trek Continues, please watch it. It's a really, really great series. They tie up a lot of things with the 5-year mission of the Enterprise. But there's an episode that was written by one of the actresses on the show, which deals with the refugee situation in Europe. And what happens is there were people who were literally writing saying, oh, you're too right wing. Oh, you're too left wing on the subject. And his reply, which was golden, he says, well, if I'm getting both sides saying that I'm too far on each other end, then we did our job. You're supposed to make sure that the story gives something for the reader to say, okay, I get it. Now, one of the other things which they like to talk about, these social justice types, is about the X-Men. Now, what they refuse to acknowledge is that Stan Lee created the X-Men because he got tired of figuring out origin stories for these heroes. He just said, oh, how about they're just born like this? And that was it. He wasn't thinking about marginalized people. He just thought, this would be interesting if they were born with their powers. That was it. It evolved into the concept of marginalized people. That's what it did. It evolved into it, but it never started out like that. And the whole thing with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, Magneto and Charles Xavier. Dare I say, most people didn't really catch on to that terribly when it first started. But one other thing concerning also the X Men is the fact that what they did with Magneto, and it was so funny for the longest time. Magneto was just this cookie cutter bad guy, but then they gave him a backstory about surviving Auschwitz, and basically you understand him as a bad guy. I mean, that's one of the great things when you look at comics. When the bad guy, you understand why the bad guy is doing what he or she is doing. It'll be once they give that backstory, not the typical, I'm a bad guy for bad guy's sake. Okay. One other thing. Yeah, like I said, since some of these people are leaving Marvel, and maybe Marvel might catch on to something better. I don't know. Maybe they might just pick up the pace and give us better comics, maybe better writers out there. I mean, we can only hope. You know what I mean? Oh, and to Baby Jesus, who just described, okay, yeah, black women in a Power Girl outfit with the boob plate. Yeah, okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. All right, well, that's about it for me. I'm Filter, and I'm out of here.